Today's guest is Julia Lamm, also known as Coach Jules, and she is an expert in core exercises, including pelvic floor exercises. So it's such a great subject for women over 50 because our pelvic floor weakens with age. The gravity has done something to our pelvic floor. So we get into talking about that actually a little bit late in the episode because she has such an amazing story. She comes from Russia. She's Russian and she fell in love with her husband when he was visiting Moscow. And then she moved here, left her home country, came to America to live the American dream. We talk about how she started a franchise business and then ultimately was unhappy in that business and how it led her to finding yoga, which led her to finding out more about the science behind exercise and strength. I was so impressed. I went to her website and she has so many certifications and training, so much training, and she really understands. We got into a lot of technical talk about the core, and I think it was very enlightening to me. And Kegel exercises, remember that? I remember the Kegel exercises. I can say I have been neglecting my Kegel exercises. I need to get back to it. She gave me some inspiration, but she's just a delightful person. She showed up with a smile and high energy. I love guests that do that. I'm so lucky. My guests are amazing. And she's just another amazing guest that I got the opportunity to meet and talk to. So without further ado, let's turn it over and you can meet Coach Jules. Welcome to another episode of Not Your Average Lives. And I have with me today Julia Lamm, and she goes by Coach Jules. So I love that. That's her nickname, Coach Jules. And she is a core exercise specialist and a 500-hour yoga teacher. That's a lot of hours. So, and she works as a strength coach for women over 50. I am thrilled that we're going to be talking about this subject with women. She also specializes in pelvic floor exercises, I guess, is, I don't know what else, pelvic floor health.
Well, yeah,
So
that's what
yeah,
I call it.
yeah. And I know that's something that gets very weak when you get older, and we don't do those. And Kegels, I think, is an exercise you're just supposed to do, but a lot of times we just don't think about that. But I am so excited to have you here and talking. You're so knowledgeable. Your website has a list of so many different areas of expertise that you have. So you're clearly, passionate about exercise and health. And one of the things that you said in when you were sending me your background is that you weren't ever really a fitness person until you got into your 30s and realized you needed to do something. So I'd love to hear, welcome, first of all.
Yes, well, thank you, Lori. I'm happy to be here. I love your smile and energy, and you clearly have a passion as well. And I think
Yes.
your story is inspiring, so that you transformed yourself and become so techy.
Yeah.
Because I'm getting to my 50s and I just use that as my excuse. I'm old.
Yeah. No, we can't do that. We can't do that. But one of the things I love about Julia is she wore pink. She went and she did a little research on me, and I have this big old pink background, and she matches perfectly. So thank you for doing
Yes,
that.
so
Yeah.
good. Yes,
Yeah.
I have white background so you can see yours with the
Yes.
skirts.
Yes.
Uh,
And also I should mention, because people hear your accent, she is Russian. She comes from Russia. She moved here when she was 25. I have high respect for people who come to and move to a different country that is not their native language. Obviously, you probably knew English when you came here. I don't know. I'm just wondering, but I can't imagine like coming to a country and living and planting yourself there when, it's kind of a second language for you.
yes, well, and I can give you a little secret because I do believe in law of attraction, especially when it works.
Yes, tell
So,
me.
and I did have that aspiration to live in the United States. And I was learning English, but when I came here, surprise, surprise, everybody was speaking so fast, I couldn't understand them that well. And I had a lot of accent, and people did not understand me that well. So and that was very frustrating time because obviously you want to be sociable and you want to speak and you want to make friends. And then when you go out there, there is just like this crush.
Yes.
And there is only so much patience and so much self-esteem you can do. It just gets annoying.
Hmm.
So then
So
you
yeah,
just,
let me ask you, you're
yeah.
25. So were you still in school? Did you come here to go like,
Well, so I met my husband in Moscow, and
okay.
we actually had a long distance relationship by
Mm.
writing actual letters
Oh, that is long
with
distance.
paper. He
Yeah.
actually had to type his because his handwriting was really bad, and I didn't have a computer, so I just had a pen and paper. And in a way, it was also like learning English.
Did he speak Russian?
No, he spoke English, and
Wow. That's
yeah,
great.
but we
I
had,
had an office mate once, and
yeah.
he had a, well, at the time girlfriend, they ended up getting married, but she was Portuguese,
Hmm.
and they met in a plaza, across a crowded plaza, locked eyes, and he spoke a little bit of Portuguese but not much,
Yeah.
and she didn't speak a lick of English, and they made it work. I mean, so fascinating. Yeah.
Well, yeah, so we kind of met sort of like that when he was in Moscow, but I spoke English somewhat.
Okay.
And really, just that's how conversation kind of started. But he also is a fun guy, not a mushroom. And I happen to understand his jokes. And this is kind of like it started. So, yeah. And then, the story goes, and I'm here
Hmm.
basically. But he's originally from Buffalo, New York. So that's where I landed when I came here in 1999. And yes, I was 25. So, yeah.
So
So
how long did you date before
oh,
came?
for about like maybe a year.
Okay.
And we also like met in some other neutral territory, I guess.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So, but yeah, he's a nice guy. We're still married. So we've been married for 22 years, I think. Um, yes. Yeah, we just celebrate our 20th anniversary before the COVID started, and we went
Yeah.
to Europe for our vacation. So, and of course, he picked the countries. So we went to countries like Andorra that most people don't know.
No, I don't think I know of
And it's a
Andorra.
small country. It's actually close to Spain, and it's
Okay.
basically Spain, but it's just this little country that has 30,000 people who live there. And it's more like a ski resort. So when we
Mm.
were in Barcelona, they had a football match, and their stadium has capacity for 30,000 people. So it's like the whole stadium of Barcelona. That's a
Mm.
country of Andorra.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
and then
Uh,
another little country he picked, it's Malta. So like some people might know Malta. So
mhm.
then we just kind of had to go to these little countries, and then went to Spain, obviously, in the big
Now
one.
Malta's the one that's off the bottom. Well, it's to the west of Italy, like
Yeah.
below. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just
I've been
British
there on a
colony.
cruise. Yeah.
Yeah, the British colony. So people speak English there, but it's very small.
Hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, so I guess we're just kind of checking off on a list of small countries where we've
Cool.
been.
Yeah, I had my purse stolen in Barcelona, so that was
Oh,
my
yeah,
memory of Barcelona.
yeah. Some people have those stories,
Yes.
yeah, with Spain or other ones.
Yeah.
We
And
went
my friend who was with us like warned us, doubly warned us, triply
back.
warned us, and it was exactly as they say, like just I forget what, like trademark, where we
Yeah,
got distracted
yeah,
and
yeah.
somebody reached into the car and pulled the purse out. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
it.
We fell for it.
Hopefully you have other good memories about it.
Yes. Yes. It was an amazing trip. So Barcelona, just one little blip on the, yeah.
Yeah, it's a vibrant city. It's
Yeah.
really nice. And we did a lot of walking there, obviously.
Hmm.
So, yes, that's how we kind of met. Yes. And I just had to, work on my English. Did I go to school? Well, I had my education in Russia, but that doesn't really count. And plus, I had like to do something. So, I went to Niagara University in
Hmm.
Buffalo. So, and I did my like bachelor's degree, but they gave me some credits. So
Hmm.
it didn't take me 4 years. And I was an A student and all that. So then I went for my master's degree, and I thought, oh, I would just go to PhD because I was a forever student. It's fun.
Yeah.
Until Until I also, before I came to America, here's another little secret. I had an American dream because when you learn about America, at least how I learned, it's all about owning your own business because that's what America is all about. That's like,
Mm.
I was always fascinated with those stories when people would immigrate and they have $20 in their pockets and then they build a Disney World or whatever. so so I had that American dream, except that when I lived in Russia, I didn't actually like ask what does Julia want. It was not like the part of the vocabulary. You just go do your thing. So when I came to America, it was like that American dream was in the back of my head, but I didn't know what it's gonna be like. I just know like owning your business, that's the thing to do.
Yeah.
So, to make the story short, we basically got into a coffee and donut franchise, which was actually Canadian, but they opened their market in Ohio. So that's how we moved from Buffalo to Ohio, opened the doors to 24/7 operation of the franchise business. And I could check mark, I lived the American dream.
Yes.
And
Yes.
then from
Franchises
that,
are great, for if you don't want to like build something from scratch. I looked into franchises. So yeah, I totally can relate to how that works. Yeah. So
well, except also like your freedom of stuff is limited.
yes.
And there are
Yeah.
lots of, so it's kind of like we decided it's kind of like you're buying a job for yourself.
Yes.
So, and they give you just a little bit of that delegation properties and like
Hmm.
say, yeah,
Yeah.
you're kind of like a boss, but you have to do this, this, and that.
Not a lot of freedom with
Yes,
owning a business like that. Yeah.
yes. So yeah, it was
Yeah,
a great,
and the kind of employees you have too aren't the kind that stay forever. It's kind of like
exactly.
they cycle in and out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it was a lot of frustrating moments. And when I was finishing the business school, and I thought, okay, so like I am prepared. I read lots of books and did lots of papers, except that, especially that type of business, does not really lead or does not just kind of apply or conform to all those business school ideas that I learned and
Mm.
did papers on and things like that. So I had to kind of like relearn and readjust my attitude and become who I've become, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it feels to me like you had that entrepreneurial spirit inside of you. So you
Yeah,
learned, that
I
a different
yeah, I
different
don't
model.
know if it was entrepreneurial per se. I just kind of had an idea, and I am more like a determined person. So it's kind of like my middle name,
A doer.
determination.
Yeah.
Yes. And my husband never thought to do anything like that, but he's very easygoing and he's more like curious, like, oh, okay, how hard could it be? Let's do that. Okay. Like he said yes. All right.
Well, he wants you to be happy. He wants you to,
Yes.
yeah, that's good.
So yeah, that's how we kind of did that. So it was, yeah,
So he
it
did that with
was
you, or did he have another job as well?
well, we had to do it together,
Mm.
which was obviously a great test. But
Yeah.
we got another store, another location, and I just kind of nicely sent him there so that he can be the boss.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, but it was very yeah, challenging experience. But from that experience, I guess I started to search, maybe answering that question, what really Julia wants, because I was so exhausted and so emotionally drained. And so
Mm.
just like, I don't want to do this anymore. So when you kind of hit that ground and things just don't feel right anymore and everything hurts because obviously it's a standing job. So you're always standing, you're always
Mm.
dealing with all these people, you're telling them the same thing. So, like, if you want to strengthen your patience, start a franchise with the people who don't want to work.
Uh,
So yeah, and I basically kind of hit the ground when I had a manager and I couldn't be like this controlling freak anymore. Like I had to give the freedom to the baby and just let it be.
mm.
So
I
that
like that.
I could
Yeah.
explore other avenues and other paths. And like my back was hurting, my legs were hurting, my like heart was hurting, everything. So, and somebody said, oh, and like that yoga thing was just on the horizon. And somebody said, maybe you should try yoga. So, like, it's good for your back and, helps you out. And I was like very much type A, and I didn't really know yoga from the perspective I know it now. So I just went to a physically demanding yoga class that was Ashtanga driven, which is like super physically demanding. But for the type A, it's like, yeah. And I never was formally exercised or did any sport. So I was not an athlete by any means. Obviously, when you live in Russia and you don't have public transportation, this is your form of exercise. You have to walk everywhere. You have to
Yeah.
stand at the bus stop. You have to go to the metro station. You're walking constantly, like nonstop. You want to go grocery shopping, you have to bring your groceries back to the apartment. So that's why, like, living in a big city and having the public transportation, like there is really like physically no time to go to the gym. Plus, like you have to drive. I mean, take another bus.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. You came to America and you're like, oh, that's why Americans have a weight problem.
yes,
Yeah.
yes, it definitely impacts it for sure, and also like that social aspect. You go outside, and there's not many people out there. So, when you're in a big city and go to the Red Square in Moscow, it's like, whoa, so many people. You just can like watch them.
Mm. Yeah,
So,
it was funny. I was walking in the neighborhood a couple days ago and one of the kids was going to the pool and he was on one of those motorized like scooters.
uh-huh.
And it made me think, oh my gosh, this is the kids nowadays aren't
Yeah,
even getting the exercise that they used to get by walking to the pool.
yeah.
They're just, you're basically standing and being delivered somewhere, standing still.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So yeah, the world is changing. That's why
Yeah.
the gym and exercising and strength training, I consider that not a luxury anymore. It's actually kind of like taking your vitamins or eating well. And
Yes.
so we need to eat well, nutritious movement, nutritious food. That's how I look at it. So exercising, it's a nutrient. It's a nutrient dense diet for
Yeah.
the muscles, for the ligaments, for the bones. And it's very well researched, especially strength training. And it's proved that it has so many great benefits.
Yeah. So
And
when you went to that yoga for the first
uh-huh.
time, did that like something trigger or did you, what made you keep going back? I mean, 500 plus hours in yoga
Yeah.
training, that's a
Um,
lot.
well, so yeah, that was a physically demanding yoga.
Hmm.
And again, for the type A was fine. So I know if you take any yoga classes, but in the end, there is that Shavasana. So, and
Hmm.
I was skipping Shavasana for like a whole year because for the type 8, I just didn't have time.
Hmm.
So,
Is that
however,
like the corpse pose? What's the corpse
well,
that's
yeah, corpse, yeah, that's
yeah.
Shavasana.
Yeah.
Yes, you're
Yeah.
lying down and you're
Yeah.
supposed
I
to like,
love that's my favorite part.
yes,
I'm
well, let
type
me
A
know.
too, but I think it's because
Exactly.
it's like, oh, I'm
Yeah,
getting permission to like lie there.
yes.
Yeah.
But again, I didn't know what I didn't know.
Yeah.
And I did my check off with the physical stuff. However, more I went into that, Ashtanga yoga, just you have to follow like a same sequence over and over again. And it's physically demanding. It requires a lot of strength. But when you don't know, you don't know. You just kind of like do what everybody else does until your body finally says, like, I cannot do that down dog anymore. My wrist hurting, my shoulders hurting, my back is hurting. And like, who said that's supposed to help your back? So like everything was hurting. Like I was modifying. Then I was just like fed up and quit modifying because it's like it's obviously not working for me.
Oh, and this is you're in your 30s too, right?
Yeah, yeah. I was in my late 30s.
Hmm.
Yes. But again, I came from non-exercising,
Yeah.
non-loading, no strength, just a normal person, kind of working hard hours and then kind of sit here and there. So I had no strength concept.
Yeah.
And I was already flexible, but I didn't know what I didn't know. and everybody goes to yoga for flexibility, and you just kind of, and I was like really that horizon, like it was just getting like so popular that it's a cool thing to do yoga. So, but when I couldn't do the physically demanding yoga, I somehow started to explore the other benefits, and I started go more to like yoga studios, which were more like yogic instead of gym like. And then I started exploring the other side of yoga, which was more like that spiritual, the meditative, the breath,
Mhm.
the like going inward, which was all different world for me that I could not really feel comfortable in. It was not my comfort zone. But
Yeah.
somehow at that point of life, when I was like completely just like, wow, like
Yeah.
whatever, let me
You're
go
the
in
you're what
whatever that
you are what
means.
I call a busy doer. And so
Yeah,
you're so busy being busy and
yeah,
this just and you suppress all that stuff that, needs to
yes.
be revealed. Yeah.
Exactly. Suppressing is the correct
Mhm.
words. So yes, I was suppressed, and it started to show up in my whole body and also in my breath. So like
Mm.
I was actually physically like suffocating. Like I started to have breathing issues because I was, I think, so much suppressed that my body started to react. And then at that moment, I kind of found the other side of yoga where there was a lot of like talk about breath. And I learned that, breathing is a reflection of your emotional state. And that was like a perfect connection of what was happening with me. And one of my favorite quotes right now about breathing is, when you can control your breath, no one can steal your peace. So that's why it's like one of the areas in my body that would always just like react. And I could notice because now I'm aware.
Yeah.
Like, oh, like I have to stop thinking those thoughts, or like, okay, so like I cannot take that good, effortless breath. So things just not working well, something like I have to switch.
Yeah.
Find other thoughts. I have to find other actions or non-actions. But like breathing is important, especially when I went through like a year of having this not so good breathing time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like you weren't getting enough oxygen.
Well, but I think it was just that on the personal level, that emotional state where it's like so suppressed that, yeah, like that breathing came to the surface, and I had
Yeah.
to do something about it, because suddenly, like, I didn't care what people said or whatever else I feel. If I can breathe one day with no issues, it's like, that's a great day.
Wow. That's and you knew it too. I had a period of having anxiety attacks.
Yes.
And
And that,
that's like not getting, you're not short of breath and stuff like
yeah.
that. Yeah, which
Mhm.
I didn't
It
really
was
know
kind of
what they
like
were.
that. Yes.
Mhm.
Then when I went to the doctor, that's basically like they were saying that. However, when I come from Russia and the way I was bred up, like, in Russia, at least in my times, it might have changed. We looked at that kind of stuff. It's like, it's made up stuff. You just
Yeah.
pick up your butt and go. Do your
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
There's no time to be depressed.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's why when I went to the doctor and she was like saying all these things, and I'm like, no, I don't have that. Like, no, I'm not, I'm not accepting that. Because obviously she was like, yeah, here's your antidepressant pills and whatever.
Yeah. So did you take
Not
those?
a problem.
Did you take
No,
no?
no, no, I just had to, you know, get to the surface of things and start kind of readjusting my life path. And still at that moment, I didn't know what I was going to do, and how it's all going to evolve. But then I was just kind of getting my yoga teacher certification, because it was just kind of cool thing to explore movement, and somehow it was interesting.
Were you still running your franchise as you
Yes,
were going through the
when I was,
yogas?
yeah,
Okay.
kind of switching, it still was
Mhm.
there, but I was not very actively or emotionally involved there as much.
Yeah, were you how was this in terms of like, this is something that you wanted? It sounded like your husband followed it because it was something you were wanting to explore and be passionate about, and you moved. So there's a lot of responsibility with that. And then you started feeling this like, well, I'm not really happy. Was that hard to express? Did you kind of keep it suppressed because of that as well?
No, in terms of my husband, I mean, he sees it and he knows it. He's like, it's not for you. Just go do your thing. Like, just move
Oh,
out. So,
he
yeah,
sounds like a terrific guy.
put your
Yeah.
manager there. So, because, yeah, he was very supportive. So yeah, that was fine. And obviously, the store that I managed did not run as well as I was there.
Mm.
But you just take what's there. It was there,
Yeah.
and my
Yeah.
manager did what she did. And we had a contract. It was coming to its end anyway, and I was just kind of taking that few last years of the contract to get out and explore other possibilities, and just to kind of reestablish my faith and believe that something more fulfilling and more interesting out there. And really like through yoga. So I guess that's when I was trying to go inward and have those practices, which were first very new to me and uncomfortable. But then I kind of got a hang of it and they became part of my life. So that's why I came from like Ashtanga yoga, that physically demanding practice, to the restorative queen of yoga. So at the yoga studio where I was, and that's where like most people feel uncomfortable to do restorative yoga because it's more that slow, gentle, lots of pauses, lots of breath and whatever. And then suddenly I switched from here to here
Mm.
to meet somewhere in between. Um, but then I kind of sort of started to explore other realms of movement because yoga did not answer many questions when you start asking why. And a lot of times in yoga, it's not very scientifically proved because it's not scientifically researched either. And it kind of goes from like, my teacher of 1,000 years ago said that, now I'm doing this and that and whatever, when things like don't make sense anymore, like they're not
Mm.
functional, what you're just saying.
Mm.
So, and then I started to follow other more science-based teachers who were more into biomechanics, even though they were like doing biomechanics for yoga, but it's more like science and strength. And that's actually, I learned about strength and benefits of strength from the teacher who was
Mm.
doing biomechanics for yoga. And that's where I did my 500 hours, no, 300 hours to make it 500. So, and I learned a lot about the benefits of strength, which to me before I was brainwashed like many women. Pink weights is just enough. Strength training is not for women. And when you go to that gym and to that weightlifting room and see all those guys like huffing and puffing, I thought like, I do yoga. I am more superior than you guys.
Mm.
so, so yeah, I was kind of brainwashed and I was fearful. And it's like, what if I'm going to hurt myself and this and that and whatever. But when you learn that other side and understand the benefits of strength training and also making the connection of what happened to me when I was doing yoga, just like one connection to make, maybe helping your audience when I made it for me. So when you do that strenuous yoga move, which is like plank, but you have to like slowly lower down, and it's like even harder than plank. There are some other nuances. So it's basically relative to like bench press, right?
Mm.
If you're lying down on the bench and you're doing your bench press, except
Mm.
that you're doing body weight and going down to the floor.
Mm. Yeah.
So, and in strength training, if you do it, there is a progressive loading. Because, like, if you've never done anything before, you don't come just to the yoga class. And let's say that I weigh 150 pounds, I'm expected to take my 150 pounds, hopefully with control and not just thinking, and go down and come back up.
Yeah. And you can't do that because that's how you get hurt. I mean,
Exactly.
shoulders, especially with we're older
Exactly. And
people.
guess what the common injury in yoga is?
Yeah.
It is shoulder.
Frozen shoulder.
But we
I
don't
had it.
fix that. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Especially when back then, especially we like yoga fixes everything, like do yoga for this,
Mhm.
do yoga for
Yeah.
that. But
I
depending on
hate the
what
I
it
hate the
is,
I hate the ones where you have to have your elbows close in. Those are the
yeah,
hardest.
yes, yes,
You
exactly.
need the like your arms out because I don't know, it feels
That's
like
the
more
one I'm talking
stability. Yeah.
about. It's that, yes,
And
aim.
that's how I hurt my shoulder.
Yes,
Mhm.
because again, if you think about bench press and you're at the gym and I bring you a barbell with 150 pounds and you just came from,
Yeah. Yeah. Good.
office,
Yeah. Yeah.
so you'll be like, what are you crazy? But here, when in a yoga class and you're doing
Yeah.
body weight, you don't make these two connections.
Yeah.
I'm just asking you, you came from the office, you cannot even pick up 10 pounds without like feeling whatever.
Yeah.
And then here in the yoga class, it's like, you're doing yoga, do that.
Yeah. The best modified exercise ever was doing push-ups against a wall, like
Yes,
starting against the wall.
exactly.
And then you migrate to the sofa, like arm of the sofa.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then you finally get to the
Yeah.
floor. Yeah.
But that's what you're
That's like
describing.
you
You get
20-pound weights to go to, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so
with that
right.
massive loading, which
Hmm.
when again you come to the gym, that's why we have weights starting from 3 pounds up.
Yeah.
So that's why when you make these connections and start going through all these experiences, now I'm like making that parallel. Oh, it's not because I was like weak, but I was weak, but because I didn't have proper training. And everybody said, if you do yoga, you're okay. But again, think about it. You are bringing 150 pounds down,
Yeah.
150
Yeah.
pounds up, and doing it fast.
Yeah, I see. So you wanted to know the kind of the more of the muscular science and explanation and better techniques or alternative techniques type of stuff. Yeah.
Yes, yes. Yeah,
Interesting.
so that's why in strength training, so there's a lot more science, a lot of more understanding of biomechanics. And when you understand biomechanics, it becomes much more clear how things need to be positioned and what needs to be done and what plan needs to be put in action.
Hmm.
So if your goal is to do that type of pose and be great at yoga without breaking your shoulders, then yes, you can get that modified plan, like you were saying, maybe starting at the wall and
Yeah.
meet the person where you are from that perspective.
Yeah.
So,
So let's talk about the pelvic floor stuff because that,
mhm,
I think that really applies and my audience would be interested in that.
yeah.
And I know that a lot of times, and I don't mean to get like,
Oh,
like,
no, that's
well,
fine.
this is like visiting your doctor. Let's just pretend you're like visiting your
Yeah.
doctor. But I know that when you get older, and I haven't had this problem yet, but it's coming if I don't do my pelvic floor exercises, is that I know that you can actually have like accidents. Like you know, like not make it to the bathroom or, so like that muscle that's in like your vagina, I don't know what else to call it, I guess it weakens, gravity, and you think of your age. I mean, you could probably explain it better than me, but that weakens and we have to exercise that as much as we should exercise like and get nice arms, right?
Exactly. Yes. Yes. Pelvic floor and muscles.
Mm-hmm.
Just like when the shoulder breaks and you go for your PT sessions. I mean, technically, we should do the same with the pelvic floor muscles because they are muscles.
Okay. And so are Kegels something is that like the recommended exercise?
This is what is widely prescribed,
Mm-hmm.
but it really all depends. And of course, if you do go to physical therapy, it all depends on physical therapists. There are some other ones out there, but a lot of times that's what they prescribe.
Mm-hmm.
However, there is a lot more to the pelvic floor and how you look at it, and a lot of times Kegels is not the answer. So let me get to that. So first of all, the pelvic floor is not living in isolation. And first of all, it's a part of the deep core system. So when people come to me and say, my back hurts, I need to strengthen my core. So now, because of my education with Dr. Sarah Duval, who is a pelvic floor expert, physical therapist, I understand a lot more what the core is. And it's not just countless sit-ups and crunches and all of that. And the deep core system starts with the pelvic floor at the bottom.
Mm.
And then at the top, there is a diaphragm. That's why your breath matters for your pelvic floor health, for your core, and for your back. And then we have the front abdominal muscles, the back abdominal muscles. So, but they're deep. So they are beyond that six pack superficial muscles. We're talking about the deep muscles that kind of creating that core set.
Yeah.
But really your obliques, internal, external, they're still part of it.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes it's referred to core four or canister, which basically again comes from that rib cage all the way to the pelvic floor at the bottom. So that's why the alignment of canister, especially for the pelvic floor health and core engagement, is important, which is that again, stacked position. So your diaphragm and your pelvic floor diaphragm, they have to communicate. But if your pelvis spills forward, you lost that connection. No matter how many Kegels you're gonna do, it's not gonna include your whole pelvic floor into action.
Oh.
Or if you're the person who has like the other part of
Yeah.
the pelvis, so it kind of goes back. So again, you lost that connection. Or if you're a person who like squeezes the shoulder blades and the rib cage just goes, ugh, again, you lost that connection. So that's why like alignment is part of this picture. And if you are practicing the Kegels, you should understand alignment because you will be again including the entire pelvic floor into your Kegeling. So that's why now, and as I was progressing in my strength training, I also heard the stories like, warrior lift. It's like, you see that CrossFit video where ladies pee because they lifted, crazy amount of weight. I was concerned. And that's when I was like, I don't want that to happen to me. Like, how much can I lift? So you have to understand.
So that actually, there's a video that shows somebody's lifting weights and they pee.
I can send you a link.
Oh my gosh.
Well, and they were
That's a problem.
It is a problem.
I got to wear my diapers when I go do lift weights. Exactly. I mean, seriously.
Problem in this miseducation, and in that video, they were actually cheering and celebrating that moment
because they think because she's so strong, she peed.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
But that's the thing. It's a pressure management system. So if you think about toothpaste, and I have a video with that where I'm using a toothpaste as an example, and that might be a little bit easier to see. So if you look at the toothpaste before it's touched, it has that nice full tube, right? The tube, it's full and nicely positioned from all directions.
Yeah.
So this is a pressure canister system. It works exactly like that. So that's why if we have too much going from the top and kind of squeeze it, guess what's leaking? The pelvic floor, because the pelvic floor muscle is the most sensitive, right? And if I'm constantly like squeezing my external obliques here or doing my constant sit-ups without recruiting my bottom, then the pressure just goes down because there is no more to go. It goes out and down.
Okay, so I don't want to like start. I'm getting back into my weights.
Kegels.
I've been avoiding so Kegels because I've been avoiding my weights because I've just been too busy, and I've realized because I had a bone density test and it's 3 years ago I've like dropped 17%. So I'm like I have not been doing enough of the resistance stuff. Exactly. So I started back into that, but I'm worried my pelvic floor now is not getting enough attention.
Well, but anyway, that's what I'm trying to say. So if you think about pelvic floor, not just this little thing, but a part of the system, which you do need to understand core in order to lift the weights efficiently. So if you're just doing your Kegels, which is isolated thing.
Got it.
You are basically doing 25% out of this entire system.
Got it.
Because the other three not involved. That's one point. Another point, for most women, they already do lots of Kegels, and that's still a question how they do it. It's not maybe ideal. But that's what not understood out there in masses is that if you always do this,
She's
And
doing,
that,
she's like
I'm
flexing her
keeping it
arm. We
tight.
have to tell our audience who's just listening what you're doing. She's flexing
I
her
am
arm.
I am flexing my bicep curls and neck curls, bicep muscles, and I'm just holding it here because that's what usually women do for the pelvic
Mhm.
floor kegels. They just constantly tightening, tightening, and tightening. And when they lift the weights, they're still tightening. So this is what happens. And then they leak. And they like, but I'm doing my kegels and I always keep my pelvic floor tight. Well, yeah, so that's why when you need to go pee or you like coughing or sneezing at that moment, there is no more room to tighten.
Mm.
Pelvic floor muscles are just super tight. They need to do this in
Okay, so
order
you
to
need to
contract.
like, yeah, relax, tighten, relax, tighten.
Because again, pelvic floor muscles, and just like any
Mhm.
muscles, you need to lengthen in order to contract.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Because
what would you, I mean, so if
with,
somebody doesn't know what Kegel exercise
oh
is,
yeah,
what would you, how do you describe it? So
the
people can.
Kegel exercise, ideally, I mean, there are other like descriptions, how I understand. So if you imagine your pelvic floor kind of position, so it's from the pubic bone in front to the tailbone in the back, and then from sit bone to sit bone. So it kind of makes that diamond shape.
Mm-hmm.
So ideally, it has to be connected with breath. That's why, like, if you are just tightening without connecting with your diaphragm and breathing, it's again not quite efficient.
Oh, that's good
So
to know.
when you exhale, ideally, when it's connected
Uh-huh.
and restored there, so your muscles are drawing in and lifting up.
Mm.
So that's kind of like the proper Kegel. A lot of times with my clients, when we kind of start doing some stuff, they stop at the point, they just squeeze in, that's it. And they
Mm-hmm.
never lift. And they go, and again, in order
Oh,
for that to be lifted, you need to connect to your deep abdominal muscles, which would be your like transverse abdominis. So that's that shield you're putting.
so you breathe
Again,
in and squeeze
it's going to be
and
on exhalation.
on the, oh, and the
So because on
exhale.
inhale, your diaphragm, the respiratory diaphragm, and the pelvic floor diaphragm, they relaxes and lengthen.
Oh,
That's the
okay.
moment of lengthening and relaxing, just like my arm. Like I
Mm-hmm.
don't need to use it. And then on the exhalation, there is already natural response. And that's what I always tell people, like when we do some breathing work and do all this stuff, it actually happens on its own. Like God already gave that system to us. And if things are positioned well and you're connected with your breathing well, then it's already happening.
Mm.
But then, yes, you need to also know, and especially if you're lifting weights, then you have to do a little bit more, not just like relaxing breath. So that's
Interesting.
why an exhalation. So everything is drawing in and lifting up. But in order for that to happen, you have to do this, which is lengthen and relax, just like you're doing this
That's
or
great.
whatever else you're doing. That's why, like I always tell, if you imagine you're jumping on a trampoline and trampoline is so tight, it doesn't have any giving, any yielding, you cannot jump.
Mm.
So the pelvic floor is kind of like that when it's constantly tight, tight, tight. And nobody, like at least amongst my clients, when I tell them, well, do you ever do reverse Kegels? And they're like, what's that? It's when you're focusing on relaxation and
Mm.
lengthening
Mm.
because all of those muscles, they're asking for that.
Ah.
Because they have no room, they have no yielding to do. And when you have that sneeze or when you pick up something accidentally or you go for a walk and more than 2 miles, it's just it just leaks.
It's like your muscles could be overtrained, I guess, right?
Well, but imagine that you are again the tight muscle is a weak muscle
Mm.
because it has no more room to contract.
Yeah.
And in order to strengthen it, we still need to lengthen it. That's why in
Yeah.
strength training, we always, or we should be, focusing on the eccentric, which is lengthening,
Mm-hmm.
and then concentric.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
that's why when you lift weights, the pelvic floor has to respond. That's why if you're doing your Kegels in isolation and never do reverse Kegel, and then when you come to me and we start doing weightlifting and you start peeing, because again, you don't have that connection to movement.
Mm. Yeah.
Kind of like you're just doing Kegels, Kegels, Kegels. And now I'm asking you to do deadlifts with, 15 pounds, and suddenly everything goes, because
Yeah.
again, it's a part of the system. Like what
Yeah.
happens with your feet and your legs, it's going to connect to your pelvic floor,
Yeah.
because your legs is part of your pelvic floor. What happens on your right or left, the pelvic floor is going to be right, left imbalanced.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
Oh,
why
so
it's
interesting.
a part of the system that that's why I work primarily with women who did their PT and they were fine. And then they just like, oh, and then I went back to playing tennis and I leak again. Like, what's up with that? I'm doing my Kegels all the time. Well, let's see if your pelvic floor can respond to the movement, especially like jumping and running when you play tennis. It can't. Obviously, that's why you leak. When you go up the system and up the chain or down the chain, like you start seeing things and like, well, let's focus on that. Like that foot that doesn't lengthen on your right side. Let's play with that and see what happens. And then let's try to train and strengthen. Like also, pelvic floor loves strong body. Because
Mm.
guess what? If your feet and legs are not strong, and we are humans upright, vertical, so we're constantly working against gravity, what's the next part?
Yeah.
The pelvic floor has to receive the forces, but
Yeah.
it's not designed to do that 24/7. That's why it needs legs and feet and hips.
Yeah. Yeah. So, okay. So we're running long on
Yeah.
time. We just need to wrap this up. But what I am hearing here is, first of all, there is hope for people who are leaking, which is
Yeah.
like that is
Yeah.
if you're leaking, there is hope. I think a lot of doctors don't understand this. Like the general practitioner, I don't know if they, I mean, I guess maybe that's what they do is send you to PT, but so it sounds to me like anybody, what would you tell somebody who is having problems? What would be their next step? Sounds to me like they need to start getting strengthened in their core. That's like the first step.
Well, there is a lot of research shows that just educating people about the core system as a whole and not just kind of going to that mainstream, okay, do your sit-ups, or it's easy to say like don't do planks because your pelvic floor is getting closed or whatever, diastasis recti. Like you have to build up. It's going still because again, it's muscles. It's all
Yeah.
about progressive loading, and it's about progressive loading of a whole system. But I think you got the bingo. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's hope.
Yeah.
And because you're leaking, a lot of times it's not because of your age. Yes, because maybe weaker muscles, but maybe also because of your entire weaker system.
Yeah.
Because strength matters. And I believe that every woman, no matter what age she is, has to do strength training. And
Yeah.
not just like lifting pink weights for 5 years. That's not going to count. It has to be progressive loading.
When you are you saying pink weights, like easy ones?
Well, like, yeah, you know how, like, at least that in
1
my,
pounders.
that's how I was brainwashed. Like, for
Yeah.
women, just do the pink weights and do it.
Ah, yeah.
But again, the whole
The
system,
black ones, the black weights are the heavy ones,
yes,
right?
yes, yes, yes. It's kind of that power, that strength.
Yeah.
But because you're a weak woman, you don't need to do that.
Oh, that's funny.
But
Yeah.
again,
And then you like, if in what I learned, when I was in back in my fitness coaching days is that, after, if you do it consistently, you grow out of your weights, right?
exactly,
It's
exactly,
great to see that. And people think I don't want to bulk up. And it's like, actually the opposite happens. You lean out.
exactly,
And so people,
exactly.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, that's why there is so much to that. But I still work with those women who are scared to progress.
hmm,
So we might be working, and I will just like, okay, we're ready to go next. And like, no, I'm not gonna do it. Like, what's the fear? So now I have to
yeah.
educate, give them like research articles. Like it might take like weeks before they progress to like 5 pounds
Yeah.
extra.
Well, we've all been taught about
Yes,
the number on the scale, which,
exactly.
yeah, that's the problem.
Yes,
But
exactly.
lean muscle, it looks better than, yeah,
Well, but
you
also
can
there's a lot of
lose.
other
Yeah.
benefits.
I lost, I only lost 4 pounds when I started my fitness journey back when I was like almost almost 55. I was like late 54. And I lost only 4 pounds, but I went down a whole pant size, which is, you know, if I had not done
Yeah.
weights, that would have been, I would have needed to lose 10 pounds to, you know,
Exactly. That's why the number on
Yeah.
the scale doesn't really
Yeah.
matter. That's why it's not about really losing weight. It's what women really want is lose fat and
yes.
gain muscle. It's not the number on the
Yeah.
scale. So that's why I have to do that mind shift.
Yeah.
Like,
No, what women want is they want to look in the mirror and go, she looks good. Yes.
fabulous.
And wants to feel those clothes fit that are tight, you know? And
Exactly.
so anyways, you've
Yeah.
been wonderful. Thank you so much for
Well,
sharing
thank
your
you.
wisdom. I think this has been enlightening for me because I thought, oh, just need to do your Kegels, but it's so much more. And a lot of times we just want to do the easy thing.
Yes.
And yeah, and this is a little bit more, you know, you need some attention, but it's great that people don't have to live with something that
Mhm.
is like leaking is not a way we want to live.
Yeah.
So yeah, I don't want to have to wear pads. I've graduated from that. Those are behind me.
Yes.
No more periods. Yay. If there's one thing
Yes,
we can
exactly.
celebrate, right, with getting older, and to
Yeah.
go back to wearing pads because I have to, like, I'm leaking, that would be so sad. I would hate that.
Exactly. Yes.
I
Yes.
couldn't wear my leggings like I wear them now. I like my leggings. That's what I live in. So
Exactly. Yes. And that's empowering. So yeah, you
yeah,
don't need to do another pad. And I've worked with many women who had to ditch their pads and
that's
be fine
great.
without it.
Yeah.
That's why education matters. And when you
Yeah.
get to the point,
It's
it's not
yeah.
really that complex. Yeah.
It's something that like is embarrassing too. It's not something
Yeah.
people talk about a lot.
Yes. For
So
sure.
you provide a great service, and I am excited to share you with my
Well,
listeners.
thank you. Yeah,
Yes.
it's been a pleasure. It's been fun. So yeah, I know we could have stayed here for another hour,
I
but
know.
enough is enough.
All right. We'll do it again.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own, not your average life.